All right, let's take a trip together. We're heading to a hypothetical village in India called Palampur. Now, the village itself might be made up, but the story it tells about economics, about progress, and about the hidden costs of both, oh, that story is as real as it gets.
So, when you first look at Palampur, you see a pretty typical, well-developed village. It's got that classic mix, right? Bullock carts on the same road as tractors, a blend of the old and the new. But to really understand what makes this place run, to get its economic heartbeat, we have to ask a super basic question. How does anything actually get produced here?
So, what exactly is Palampur? Well, it's home to about 450 families from all different backgrounds. But here's why we're talking about it. Think of Palampur like a little laboratory, a small-scale model that can teach us some really big lessons about how entire economies work. You know, for a village, it's surprisingly well set up. It's got good roads, electricity in most homes, schools, even health clinics. But let's be absolutely clear about one thing. All of that, everything, orbits around one central activity: farming. It is the absolute lifeblood of Palampur, with 3 out of every 4 people working in it.
Okay, so let's get down to the nuts and bolts. What does it actually take to produce anything? I mean, it doesn't matter if you're growing wheat in Palampur or building a smartphone in Silicon Valley. It turns out there's a kind of universal recipe.
And here it is. These are the 4 essential ingredients for making anything. First, you need land. And that's not just the dirt under your feet, it's all the natural resources, like water and forests. Second, labor, the people doing the work. Third, physical capital, your tools, machines, buildings. And finally, the special sauce, human capital. That's the know-how, the skill, the brains of the operation that brings it all together.
Now let's zoom in on that physical capital piece, because this is a really important distinction. It's kind of 2 things in one. First, you've got fixed capital. That's the durable stuff used for years and years, like a tractor. Then you have working capital. Think of this as the stuff that gets used up in the process, like seeds, raw materials, and the cash you need to pay for everything.
So here's the thing. While you can change some of those ingredients, right? You can always buy more tools or hire more people. Palampur, like a lot of the world, is up against one massive, unchangeable roadblock.
And this is it. This is the core conflict of our whole story. The amount of farmland in Palampur has not grown one bit since 1960. They've already turned every last bit of wasteland into fields. So you've got this classic dilemma: more and more people to feed, but the exact same amount of land. What on earth do you do?
And this leads us to the million-dollar question. It's the question that farmers in Palampur, and honestly, farmers all over the globe, have been trying to answer for centuries. How do you squeeze more out of what you've already got?
So how did they crack this impossible code? Well, they didn't just make a few small tweaks. Nope. They launched a full-on revolution in the way they farmed.
They came at the problem with this brilliant 2-part attack. First, multiple cropping. Thanks to good irrigation, they figured out how to grow 2, sometimes even 3 different crops on the same field in a single year. Genius. And second, they went all in on modern farming methods to get a way, way bigger harvest each and every time.
And this right here, this is the toolkit for what became known as the Green Revolution. And it's so important to get this. It wasn't just one magic bullet. It was a whole system. New high-yield seeds, chemical fertilizers, pesticides, modern machines, and the one thing that powered it all: reliable irrigation.
So did it work? Oh boy, did it ever. The results were absolutely mind-blowing. Just look at this chart. In the mid-60s, India produced about 10 million tons of wheat. By 2020, that number had skyrocketed to 110 million tons. That's more than a 10-fold increase. Just wow.
And we see that same incredible story playing out right there in Palampur. With the old, traditional seeds, a farmer might get, say, 1,300 kilograms of wheat from a hectare. But with the new, high-yield seeds, that same piece of land was suddenly pumping out 3,200 kilograms. The problem of fixed land, it looked like it was solved for good.
But you knew there was a but coming, right? This incredible farming revolution came with a hidden price tag, and it was a steep one. The very thing that solved their biggest problem started creating a whole bunch of new, dangerous ones.
It was like the land itself started to fight back. All those chemical fertilizers they were using started to strip the soil of its natural fertility. The constant pumping of water for the new crops made the water table drop at an alarming rate.
These are resources that took centuries to build up, and they were being damaged in just a few decades. And this wasn't just some wild theory. Scientists and reports from the time were already sounding the alarm. This quote here says it all. Sure, you get a huge boost in the short term, but keep it up, and you'll end up with soil that's even less fertile than when you started.
So the environmental cost was huge. But the revolution didn't just impact the land. It also had a deep and deeply unequal impact on the people, completely changing the social fabric of the village.
Look, in a farming village, land is power. And in Palampur, that power is spread out incredibly unevenly. Get this, a full third of the families own no land at all, 0. Most of the rest only have tiny little plots. Meanwhile, a small, elite group of just 60 families controls the lion's share of the farmland.
And let me just tell you a quick story of how this plays out for a real family. There's a farmer named Gobind. He started with a decent, if modest, plot of 2.25 hectares. When he died, that land got split equally among his 3 sons. Now each of them has a plot that's just 0.75 hectares. It's so small that even with all the modern farming tricks, they just can't make a living from it. It's a cycle that traps people.
So the story of this one small imaginary village leaves us with a massive, very real question. We all want progress, we all want growth. But Palampur is a cautionary tale. It shows us that progress can poison the environment and deepen the gap between the haves and the have-nots. The challenge for them and for us right here, right now, is figuring out how we achieve that growth without destroying our planet and without leaving people behind.